Can we get our panelists, Mary, Kelly, and Amy, want to come down to the murderer's row here? All right. If you're sitting in the middle, I'm going to give you the other button. Thank you for being here. I'll let Mary, Kelly, and Amy introduce themselves in a second. I'll toss out the first softball question and kind of get out of the way, which would be, what are your impressions of the film and how does it relate to what you guys go through every day here in Vermont, which is not Texas, but which is still in America? Here's a mic. You can share.
Oh, okay. My name is Mary Danko. I am the director of the Fletcher Free Library here in Burlington. And, really close. And I'm currently the past president of the Vermont Library Association. I love this movie. They got it really right. I thought they got everything right. And I think what I really appreciated is when they brought the personal stories of the people who books have made such a difference in their lives, and they have such a potential to make a difference in people's lives. And that's how we operate, on that faith. We curate these collections. We work really hard to do that. And that's what we hope. And the other thing I will say, I think that this is really grounded in freedom of speech. Freedom of speech lives on our library shelves. And to me, this is nonpartisan. This is America. And this is what we were founded on. And that's just a through thread that I always like to make people understand when we do our work.
My name is Amy Olsen. I'm the library director of the Lanpher Memorial Library in Hyde Park, Vermont. And there's so much to this movie, but I think my first impression that I'll say is the very beginning, the voice. A voice of one of the librarians says something about librarians being stewards. And I love that word so much. And I love the idea that it infers sort of this passage through not just taking care of a space now, but sort of holistic idea of taking what has been happening in the past and holding it now, and then sort of ushering or shepherding it forward into the future. But right after that, she said, I used to think I was a steward, and now I'm a vanguard, which is my new favorite word, because it is kind of like being on the front lines of a movement, and that's what this documentary felt like to me. And another theme that carried on throughout was not staying silent, and I think that's why we're here, and grateful for you to be here and keep telling these stories and keep talking about freedom of speech and using our voices to fight censorship.
Hello, my name is Kelly McCagg. I am the director of the Burnham Memorial Library in Colchester, and I'm a past president of the Vermont Library Association. The two things that kind of speak to me the most from this movie were the evolution of the one school board member, where you saw initially she had come into it thinking that, you know, there was all this pornography and negative material being presented to the students. And then because she had an open mind and she did her research, she discovered that that was actually not the case. And she allowed herself to be educated and enlightened. I've had the privilege of having that experience with my own patrons. And so I appreciate that. And the other thing that really struck me about this movie was that I feel that the whole experience of book banning is very indicative to what's happening in our country right now and the intolerance that we're seeing widespread across many areas of our lives. So that, you know, I thought was important as well.
Let's just go ahead and throw it out to the audience. Who's got questions? Everybody must have questions around here, right? I find this extraordinary. Yes, in the back. Shout out, please.
I'd love to. First of all, thank you so much for being here. I love libraries. I volunteer at the Fletcher Library, and I feel so lucky to be there. I'm wondering, I know Vermont is so different from Florida and Texas and those states, like, thank goodness, but I'm wondering what you three have seen happen at your libraries, if there's been anything, you know, within this scale.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, I think. Can you paraphrase the question? Sure. What are we seeing here in Vermont? We're not Florida, but we are Vermont. I can tell you. I'll tell you what I think. I'm going to pass it on. We definitely all have colleagues who have experienced some sort of challenge. In some way, shape, or form. Sometimes it's in a book, it can be a program, it can be a display. And we try and support, especially through the Vermont Library Association, we have an Intellectual Freedom Committee, and we do our best to connect with folks and support them as best that we can. We're very lucky in Vermont. We just passed a bill, was it last year, yes. Act 150, that we have to have collection development policies now, and these policies, it is in statute, have to be grounded in the freedom of speech, in civil rights, in some of the stuff that's already in the Vermont statute, which has been a huge help that will be for us as we develop these. It is a pretty groundbreaking law. We've actually had other states reach out to us to model after it. Some of us had to testify on the state level to it. We did get.
I was in the working group.
Yep, and Kelly was in the working group that got that all started. So that there's some good solid stuff that's happening. I think for me, what I worry about is the chilling effect that this is all happening. So what we saw in the movie is very like it's overt that and it's out there, but many of our librarians in Vermont work in small rural towns where they live. They see their community members at the post office, at the general store. And when it comes time for them to buy those books that are might be considered by some controversial, are they going to buy that book? Are they going to put it on their shelves?
The soft censorship.
The soft censorship. So that's what really worries us, because you saw on the film what happens. I mean, it's not lost on us that these are our colleagues that are getting death threats. So you're asking somebody in their job, and some of them need their jobs, to do something where they could possibly lose their job at minimum or lose their life, or their family is getting threatened. So I really worry about that the most. And so I'm just going to go one step further and say, my message to Vermonters is support your local librarians. Reach out and see how they are doing. Check in with them. Let them know that you have their back so they can make those decisions to buy those books. They can make those decisions to put on those programs, to put on those displays.
So I can speak to two instances in relation to Drag Queen Storytime. Our library presented that probably 8 years ago, and we were one of the first in our area to have it. And our community, for the most part, was supportive, but we were getting a lot of attention from national groups, which I was surprised by. And I was getting a lot of phone calls and hate emails and people calling work threatening me. And they were long distance phone numbers or block phone numbers or things like that, to the point where we actually had uniformed police presence at the event just to make sure that everyone was safe. Nothing happened. It was a great time. We had tons of people. The other thing was, while I was president of the Vermont Library Association, a director in a small town had tried to have the event. It became an issue with the board of the library. They had basically said that it was going to be put on hold. It was not going to happen. So a local restaurant had said they would host it. The director ended up quitting because she felt she was not supported. It just so happened that this happened right before Banned Books Week. And so we wrote an article about it for local newspapers. And the board president, I believe it was, did not agree with how we presented it, even though it was all factual. And he was actually trying to bring a lawsuit against myself and the organization as a whole. And so, yeah, it does happen.
Did you bring a lawsuit?
He was not able, he did not have grounds, so. The American Library Association actually has lawyers like on staff, and so I still have her name and phone number at my desk, and you can call them up and they will give you free legal advice. And she had actually said that there's basically he has no grounds. There was an instance where he could, I can't remember what the term is of how he could have brought a case against us, but basically he would be throwing his money away, that there's no way that he could have won it. And so it never did happen. So thankfully.
Similarly, Drag Story Hour is one that we've also at the Lanpher Library. I got some messages calling me a pedophile, and also last year at a national conference, there was a speaker who was National Library Conference for rural and small libraries. There was a speaker who was saying that we should be looking at Project 2025 because she said, if you're not talking about it, it's talking about you. And on page 4, it is talking about making librarians, making it a felony charge to have books on shelves that are deemed pornographic or inappropriate. So even in Vermont, and I'm in Lamoille County, but I live in Orleans County, so I'm up in the Northeast Kingdom, and believe me, there's a lot more outside of Chittenden County that's happening.
We can't hear the other 2 mics as well. Here's your mic.
I think I'm just talking directly into the mic, and I have a loud voice. Talk directly into the mic.
Who's next? I've got one then. So, granted, we're not Florida or Texas, but it seems like the chilling effect we're talking about. What is the biggest challenge facing Vermont libraries right now? If it's not book banning, there's vague threats that come through, but you can still have drag time story hour, which is great. My friend Kat is awesome at that. And so, what is the big challenge that faces Vermont libraries specifically, as opposed to the more radical parts of the country? You don't get to say money either.
That's exactly what I was going to say. Funding.
Ebooks.
Yeah.
And if there are no challenges, then that's awesome too.
No, there's lots of
Great.
challenges.
There are.
It's how to put it in a way that makes sense. And I'm thinking about the Vermont libraries are each independent. Some states have a library system, and each of our towns and communities have our own independent. It's like Vermont, right? Freedom and unity. We like it that way. We like our independent rules and our independent communities, and it does allow us to not be cookie cutters. We are able to adapt and change to meet the needs of our individual communities. But sometimes that can be a disadvantage, especially when it's coming to things like interlibrary loans and the consortium of ebooks, which are and audiobooks, incredibly expensive to maintain. Things like that. So I think that we're doing a good job at working together and collaborating and creating ways for that to happen. But as it becomes more popular and more used, it's harder to maintain, but more important than ever for us to do so.
So is there a tax on libraries? Will it be harder for you guys to unify, like as one, all the libraries in Vermont to have a united front against if it keeps getting worse? Is there communication between all the different?
No. is the short answer. I mean, I think we try to do that through the Vermont Library Association, but like Amy was saying, it is very individualized. And I know we weren't supposed to say funding, but that is what we need. We do need funding to help us bring us together systematically in a lot of ways, and to get the kind of support that we need. And unfortunately, what we see in a lot of our towns in Vermont is when things get a little bit tight, library funding goes first. We're not considered essential services. You know, we hear that all the time. Well, you're not essential. This, and this isn't essential. And that's a hard argument to make, although I think we would all make the argument you really do need to have access to information and books, and we also do that through the computers that we provide and our internet service.
That's a new wrinkle, is AI. There's a huge learning curve with using AI, which a lot of people don't realize. And for a long time, librarians, one of our main jobs or responsibilities was teaching people how to find accurate information on the internet. And now it's teaching people how to, one, tell whether the information is coming from AI or not, but also, is that information accurate? Because a lot of AI information is not accurate. And so that's a new wrinkle in it. And getting that information out, because people think the first thing that pops up on Google, oh, there it is, there's the answer. But lots of times it's not so.
And I'll just to piggyback on that too, increasingly we keep seeing people being asked to do more and more online. Digital government is online, your health stuff is online, everything is online, and people struggle with it. It gets complicated, it gets changed, and they're being always told, we'll go to the public library, they will help you. And we will. I mean, the librarians will help you. Mostly in Vermont, we have, libraries with computers and internet service, although even that is a struggle, as we know, in parts of Vermont. But we also need funding. When we keep getting that stuff foisted on us to do that work, and we take it seriously because we know there is a digital divide, there's a socioeconomic divide that makes people not have great access to these things. We are sometimes struggling to do that, but we know if we don't do that, people are left out.
Yeah, libraries serve as a safety net, a societal safety net to a lot of resources, and people aren't always aware of that. Our library, we have food that's always available for people to come and take. I know some libraries have like closets filled with toiletries for people to come and, get when they need. And so, yeah, services that we offer free tax help. I know a lot of libraries do that for people who can't afford to have their taxes done professionally. So there's a lot of services that libraries provide that they're necessary. People need to have them, or they can't function.
Right, applying for jobs, applying for unemployment. Assistance, all that kind of stuff. And if somebody isn't familiar with how to do that online, it falls to the librarians to help, which we are happy to do. And we learn as we go sometimes as well. Also, what Kelly was saying about helping people with critical thinking. Is this information accurate? Our library, the Lanpher Library, is actually changing our mission statement to add that into our mission statement. So not only are we committed to providing a wide range of materials and access to information, but also to help people discern information.
Question over there, yes.
Yeah, hello. I volunteer at Fletcher Free too. Hi, Mary. Love the librarians, badass warriors, brave. Thank you. My question: you were mentioning about the policies that are developed about adopting books. What would the reasons be for not to bring a book into your circulation, or to take, we're hearing so much about why some folks want you to take books off the shelves, but what in your policies, why actually would you take ever a book off a shelf?
That's a great question. Our collection development policy, it's pretty extensive, right? And I'll say, let me start with this. Everybody in this room has access to any book that they want. We can get the book for you through interlibrary loan. Now, because of our budgets and our space limitations, we don't have every book that's ever been published in the world. And so sometimes that means we are making decisions. We're curating the collection. So we have a whole checklist of things that we go through, but it occurs to me, in looking at this movie, all those books that everybody was wanting to censor, they were all award-winning books. They've been published by great publishers. They've been edited well, and they've won awards. So, there's that piece of it, that we're just picking books that are really good books. We're trying to reflect our community. We're trying to reflect a diversity of viewpoints in the best way that we can. I think nonfiction books, we have to weed books, get rid of books so new books can come in. And so that's hard, but sometimes it's easier. I don't know, is Pluto still a planet? We've gone through, Pluto's a planet, Pluto's not a planet. The science books, we're always thinking critically, is this information still relevant? Should it still be on our shelves? We actually have reference materials that's called core collections that we look at, that other librarians have done a ton of work to say, this is a seminal book that you should probably have. And again, libraries have varying amounts of shelf space. So the smaller the library that you work at, the harder it is to do that collection. And you're always working hard to get rid of books so you can make room for new books. Anybody want to add to that?
I can share an embarrassing story of when we had to move a book from our teen collection to our adult collection. My teen librarian at the time had read a review in the Voice of Youth Advocates, Voya, about, it was like a recipe book for tiny foods. And she thought it would be a great book to do programs with our teen advisory group. And so she got it, and it got cataloged and put on the shelf. And a couple months later, a parent brought it in and wanted to talk to me about it. And she's like, I really don't think this is appropriate for the teens. And instantly I'm just like, what is your problem with tiny food? What could the issue be? And she flips to the back. Oh, there's tiny martinis and, tiny Manhattans. And I was like, oh my, yes, absolutely. This should get moved to the adult section. Because now in teen literature, it goes into what they consider new adults, which is early 20s. And so, yeah, they can drink legally. So yes, then we obviously had to move it to our adult collection. It was a very reasonable request. And we can't read every book cover to cover that we buy. So it does happen.
Yeah, and I'd also just say that we're not buying books for shock value. There is also this idea of award-winning books and our collection development criteria. And I kept thinking back at the film where they kept saying, you have so many books in the library, you don't need these 850 titles. And I was like, there's so many other books in the library besides these 850 titles. We'll just leave them there and read something else. So that's just something else.
I saw a question back there.
Yeah, about the federal relationship. Years ago, 15 years ago, there was concern during the Bush years about surveillance, using libraries for surveillance and collecting data. Is that still a live issue, or has it been made obsolete? And beyond that, are there other more current issues where you're concerned about a federal role and oversight, or limitations or restrictions that the federal government might want to place? That relates to 2025 as well.
Yeah, so yes, you're talking about the Patriot Act, and the Patriot Act is still in effect. So, and for those of you that don't remember, it basically says the National Security Council can have a letter that says they can go into any library or bookstore and take their computers and take whatever information they want. And the librarians or the people that work in the bookstore are under gag order. So we're not even allowed to say if that happens. So I haven't seen them lately, but when that happened, there used to be a sign in libraries that said the FBI has not been here today. And so, meaning if they came, if they came, they would take the sign down, right? So, because we couldn't say anything, but that was our subversive way of saying they had been there. So yes, that is a concern, especially right now. I would say what we're seeing with the federal government and the way that it's kind of infiltrating different databases. It is Vermont statute, and I think every state in the country has some sort of state statute that your library record is protected and what people do on the computers is protected. So if law enforcement does want that, they have to come in with a subpoena or a warrant. But as far as the federal government, yes, they can come in at any time right now. There has been times throughout the last decade they have tried to repeal the Patriot Act with no success.
There are definite trends too. So like you said, the Bush era, the Patriot Act was really a hot topic for quite a while. And I think it was a Vermont librarian actually who came up with that workaround. The FBI has not been here. Watch very carefully for the removal of this sign. For the gag order. And the subpoenas or the warrants have to be very specific too. So if somebody came into my library with a warrant that said we want to search your entire computer, I could say, please come back with a more specific warrant because I'm not going to let you just search every record in the computer. So, and I think that's also happened where librarians have been accused of holding up an investigation because they have asked them to go back for more specificity.
We have time for one more question right here.
Yes. So besides volunteering, donating, what else can we do? Because I just want to fill a giant truck full of banned books and go to Florida.
What else can we do?
What else can you do? And supporting your local libraries. I guess one of the things that I keep thinking about is you all have probably friends and relatives in other states, and people need to vote. Again, voting. I think we're all looking very close at the midterm elections. For me right now, the biggest concern I have is apathy and cynicism. And I think we have to be very careful about that. And I think we have to be engaged. What I think this movie shows is local elections matter. We have friends and colleagues in other states. And again, we're seeing that their library boards are getting stacked with people who do not have the library's interests in mind. They are there for some other agenda. So local elections matter right now. Our national elections matter more than ever. And to me, when I talk about the freedom of speech, that also means your speech of talking with the people that you know, and not shying away from the uncomfortable conversations. And I would say grounding them in, this is an American issue. Our freedom of speech, which is in the Bill of Rights, which is a foundational document to our country, is at stake right now on so many levels, not just in our libraries, but when we see people getting picked up off the street for editorials that they write in papers, that is not right. That is not right, and that is not our country. And the next place where things, I think, can have a change is the people that we elect in the positions. And to me, that the next place is the midterms. And I just really want people to talk about that and have those conversations in the coffee shops, at your dinner table, when you go to see your family at Thanksgiving. You can have civil discourse. You can have conversations that are grounded in what we want for our country moving forward.
I don't know how to pick up from there, but I will just repeat in a sense that talking about it and just being here and learning more about censorship and the harms of censorship, thinking about the kids who don't get access to books, who need them, and that gets me really emotional too. They were crying in the movie, we were crying up here. It's personal as well. So yeah, just keep talking about it.
I just want to thank you all for staying, to listen to this. It's very important. And yeah, keep talking, keep learning. And thank you all.